This podcast and every other podcast that I make is supported by Patreon. Patrons get every episode of Play, Watch, Listen completely ad-free, early, and occasionally with extended cuts and unedited versions. So if you like the show and would like to support the podcast, head to patreon.com/Alanah. Beautiful.
Oh, Austin's timing impeccable.
Wow, that is good timing. Did we summon him?
We summoned him.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
Hello.
Hit record, Austin.
I felt a kind of supernatural.
We both just said, I just hit record,
at
and then you showed up immediately.
Yeah, it actually kind of burns, and I really would appreciate sparing use of the summon spell.
I apologize. That's on me. Just I run a tight ship. I curse Austin if he's ever late, which he almost never is, to be fair. I don't know why I'm punishing you specifically and not Troy.
Yeah, no, it's he's stuck on the train.
More complex spell.
He's still on the train.
He's still on the train. Looping the earth.
No, I know this month has been absolutely bonkers for him, and for me too, which is why I've also been a little sort of crappy in my ability to be dependent upon.
Good. I feel like the kind of audience we've cultivated, they're just happy when the show exists. They're not mad when it doesn't. We are okay.
Good vibes.
Yeah, not a lot of entitlement. Hey, listeners, great job. You're doing great.
We're really proud of you.
Really appreciate you.
You make us not hate you. It's really lovely.
Yeah, that's fancy. That the internet. That's amazing.
On YouTube of all places. Nice.
Did you guys see the Apple announcement? Apple Vision Pro, I believe it's called.
Yeah, I watched that whole thing through. It was just a couple of hours long, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? I only watched the headset announcement.
Well, the Vision bit was like right at the end. There was like an hour of here's the new features we're adding to iPhone first. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Can I show you the single most wonderful thing to come out of that Apple bit?
Are you talking about the meme you shared on your Instagram story?
Yes, I wasn't sure if you saw it. I just messaged it.
Did you message it to me? Yeah. It's got the Nicole Kidman.
The AMC
text. Yeah.
That thing, the sheer quantity of takes on that Nicole Kidman thing is just makes me so happy. It's so amazing.
I had a friend do a movie night recently, and before watching the film that we all went to her place to watch, she gave the full Nicole Kidman AMC speech. Fully rehearsed. Verbatim. It was amazing.
Have you seen the Saturday Night Live version of it where it just gets like she starts like floating and has like a poltergeist voice, and it's fucking hilarious. It's like SNL obviously is very hit or miss. This is one of those that I was like, they picked the exact right thing to go after, and they did it amazingly where it just escalates way beyond sanity.
Yeah, that's a good bit. Especially because there's nothing inherently wrong with that Nicole Kidman thing. It's just very memeable. But I did see some quality memes come out of the Vision Pro, and I love VR and AR, and I use VR genuinely almost every day. Nobody ever believes me. It's a lot because I work out in it. Even if I have 15 minutes between meetings and I want to just move, I'll play Beat Saber or whatever. I do it all the time. And so I was really excited. I was like, maybe Apple are the ones that can do this. And some things about it that I thought looked absolutely incredible. Some things I found horrifying, like the idea of using FaceTime, but you don't get to see the person who's wearing the headset's face. You instead get an animated version of their face. I don't think anybody wants that. It looks fucking terrifying.
So it's a tricky problem to solve, right? If you want to
have to have a camera.
You have to have a camera, but then you're looking at someone with a blindfold on. So I can see the journey you go on there. I
think maybe we just don't use that for FaceTime. I see a lot of I think editing would be really cool. I actually think there are a lot of ways in which writing would be very helpful, because even with this giant monitor that I have, I sometimes want more reference sheets or things up than I can actually have.
That's the swordfish fantasy.
Yeah.
The swordfish fantasy of 9 monitors.
Yeah, and they're all huge.
and you're not
that bit of swordfish, Austin. Not the bit you're thinking of, Austin.
No, well, any swordfish reference, but I just picture you with your rolled up sleeves and you're drinking wine and you're dancing and there's the house music.
I'm sat here and I've got like my ultra wide monitor in the middle, and I've got like two other monitors either side, and I'm like, I could do with more screen real estate. Like I could do with.
I have a super ultra wide monitor. It's the size of two monitors put together, and I still am like, okay, well, I need this document up for this, and then I need like final draft up, and then I need to be able to research things in another one, and then maybe I need like a spreadsheet to tell me timetable. Like you need a lot more than you would think to write.
Like genuinely, if this thing can do virtual desktop to the extent that I would expect Apple to do that, I'm in. Like,
are you in for $3,500, Mike?
Sort of am, to be honest. Possibly.
I was.
I don't know if it was amazing. If it was amazing,
the fucking price point. So I was like, I can't wait to get one. I want to try it.
But isn't that Apple's move every time? Like the iPhone was like $1,000, wasn't it, at launch?
And this is the thing. This is the thing where all the takes. We've been through this before with the iPhone, the iPads, the watch, and we all mocked the first iteration. It was too expensive, and then second and third gen, these things always become incredible.
Well, that's part of why.
First gen.
That's part of why I don't know that I want to buy the first one, because I'm like, then it'll be outdated in a year when they come up with the new one.
But you want people like me to get one, so we make the things that will be the things you use, or that we are basically your willing army of like guinea pigs.
See, but here's the thing, Mike.
Iron out the problems for you when you get it.
I've probably used more AR/VR than you have. I consider myself a 1%er. I've used them a lot. I even had a HoloLens. And so if I want buy-in, because it's too fucking expensive, how big is that user base? And there are a lot of things about it that I think are very, very cool.
But it's the developers. It's the developers. Is my point.
Also people who can use it if you can use it as a tax write-off. Like if it's a business, you're buying it for a business, then it's a whole other thing. But there are a lot of
that is me a lot. I indiscriminately buy stuff
for business
all the time because I'm like, it's a write-off. I can.
Me too.
I can. There's so many times where Angela will be like, "Oh, we should pick this up," and I'm like, let me take care of that.
Is it video games?
Is it video game related or film related or, everything, even just buying games on Steam. It's all, I'll be like that. I might play that someday. So I'm going to go ahead and buy it because I like the tax write-off.
Well,
I did that with Gollum.
It's a great way. Okay.
Steam. It was like tax write-off.
Fair enough.
But based on the reviews, that might be a sizable number of the buyers.
I was wondering how many people who like me bought it to make content out of it, which was definitely my intent. But so much of the presentation, again, I was like excited from the jump. I was like, this looks really cool. And it didn't have the price point in the presentation. And then I found out later and I was like, Jesus. But a lot of the focus is on movies, like being able to watch movies. And you can do that in VR already, and it's okay. But there are some things about that I'm not sure how many people that appeals to, in that I feel like a lot of these AR VR companies underestimate how much people like the comfort of their living room and don't usually actually want to replace it.
Or something on their face.
And the comfort of whoever's sat next to them as well, right?
Right.
You're never going to sell a cinematic platform where you can't eat popcorn and make out. Mm-hmm. There's going to be an audience. To put it really bluntly, right? That's never gonna.
It definitely fucks up Netflix and chill. That is a.
But that's a part of it.
It's the
I think that stuff is very cool. I will definitely I would love to watch the whole thing of watching Star Wars while sat in a virtual Tatooine. That's cool.
Super
that's
cool.
I'm gonna do that.
But isn't that cool one time? I feel like I don't know that that's going to change the way most people watch movies. And the funny thing about it is the time where it would have been most useful to me was when I was living in studio apartments. When I lived in studio apartments, I was in those apartments because I couldn't afford not to live in those apartments. So how the fuck am I going to afford something like this?
Yeah.
That's
where it's out of interest, Alanah, what, because you're right, you are core 1% consumer kind of for this kind of product. What price point would have been for you the kind of, not what you thought it was worth, but what would have been the price point where you were like, okay, I guess I'll buy it. It's what would be the upper end of what you would be looking at for something like this?
1,500.
Okay. So significantly
below half. Isn't it 35?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't own a
buy
car. I can't justify spending $3,500.
You don't need to own a car anymore. You can bring the world to you.
Bring the car to you.
Yeah. No, but that's and am I right in saying that's around where like the more high end kind of VR headsets are kind of currently placed, right?
Yeah, there's things
So
about
they basic, yeah,
about like the Meta Quest, which I still always call Oculus, is the one that I use the most. It is on the cheaper side, but it has a lot of things that I really like about it. They just announced the Quest 3, which I was like, oh, they totally knew about the Apple product, huh? That's why the Quest 3 got announced 3 days beforehand or whatever. Which basically is smaller and lighter and has better visuals, which I've been wanting for a really long time. The reason I use it is really because it's so portable. Making it smaller and lighter is even better. So the Apple product does certainly have the portability, and I think it's like definitely more useful in that not only will it likely have Beat Saber on Apple Arcade. Oh, it can't. Oculus bought that. I forgot. Meta bought Beat Saber. I think that
they
that
also
PSVR still does,
wouldn't
though.
be able to do the control because
Right,
it's not got a controller.
but it might
so
do
you
hand
wouldn't be able
tracking. Because
as long
it's
as you
AR,
keep your hands in the zone, I
which
assume.
you do have to for Beat Saber. So I could see a world, but
okay.
it's got to have good fitness games, and a lot of people will buy into it.
Yeah.
But obviously, it has the benefit of having it's kind of AR and VR combined because you can get rid of your entire space, which I think is incredibly cool. But it also has work functionality, which currently the Quest is for video games and fitness. Like most people who use it on a regular basis, I think are using it for fitness. My favorite app's called Supernatural. Highly recommend it. And I love it. And I use it all the time. But that thing is $300.
Yeah. And you don't feel bad about, like, especially with fitness stuff, about sweating into it. It falls off your head. It's not the end of the world. This is made of glass, obviously, so you're going to be pretty careful.
Is the visor glass?
The whole of that front face is glass. So it's definitely prosumer. It's definitely...
I sometimes punch myself in the face when I'm working out.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to do that with a...
Just as a motivator.
Glass.
Yeah, just like get it together, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
definitely
exercising.
not an
No,
accident.
it's glass. I'm not sure, Mike, if you watch the whole presentation, it looks like sometimes if someone's sitting next to the person, it like puts their eyes... Is that fake? There are images...
So it's got a screen. Yeah, so it's got a video screen in
so the person is not seeing your real eyes.
No, they're seeing a 3D avatar of your face
So fucking
because
weird.
because it uses eye tracking. So
Which
everything
is
in the
awesome as well. I use the
Which
Toby
is
eye
cool.
tracker, which is also
because
fantastic. I
of
love that
that.
tech.
Because of that, they can obviously put your eyes on the screen, so they know exactly where you're looking, and they know if you're blinking, so they can animate an avatar face, which is obviously based on your face. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it doesn't look photoreal. I'm sure it looks like a dead-eyed version of you, but it does alleviate
It's cool.
one of the biggest social problems, which is people feeling weird around people wearing these headsets, especially with cameras facing out as well. It kind of... I think it goes some way, but I think it's definitely, like all Apple first passes, it'll appeal to people who want to try making stuff. Like we've done games for two VR hardware launches. So we did a Google Daydream project and we did a Quest 2 project. And that's a fun moment to be on VR and as a developer and to be making those kind of first versions of stuff. But like
Reminds me of when I worked on an
this is
Ouya
intended
game.
To be.
You worked on an
Sorry?
Ouya game?
Oh yeah, with
You
Kim
did,
Swift.
didn't you?
Oh,
Yeah, it was kind of a bucket list. Like
no way.
when one of the creators of Portal cold calls you to make an Ouya launch title, you say
No
yes,
way.
and no one ever played it, and the studio shut down shortly after.
But you still did it.
But I got to write.
Those launch titles, they're fun though, man. Like doing those, especially with the newer, weirder hardware, like getting to go over to Google and like work on Daydream stuff in the Google office with the Daydream team, like that level of access you get with something like Ouya as well, of these kind of weirder, kind of startup-y kind of consoles.
It's cool.
I think because also launch titles carry a certain amount of, like the console is coming, so there's a certain covering fire that the developer is given. It would seem, you would know more than I, but it certainly from my vantage point seemed like the creative riskiness is actually serves the game. Because it's not like the console's gonna not launch, so they're you know, it's like the sales of the game are, it's the risk factor in trying to assess the sales are not the same as a year
Completely
later
different.
on the console.
Yeah,
where you know it's like you're just assuming people are gonna be buying it just hoping to discover a bunch of stuff, and there's obviously gonna be those like reliable war chest kind of games that are helping to kind of cover for everybody else. Now, theoretically, this should be true all the time, but there is something about being at that front end.
Well,
that
you're trying to sell hardware, not
You've got the
video game.
safety, but you're also getting funding from the hardware usually
True.
in those situations. So you kind of have a guaranteed dev budget. Usually, this is all very usually, and not disclosing any contracts, but like usually if you're there for a launch of a platform, the platform holder is doing some kind of funding on the project just to incentivize you, because no one knows if that console is going to flop or take 2 years to get started. Saying what you're saying, Austin's true, but like and lots of consoles have launched historically, and if it launches with a bad first year and you're in that first year, you're kind of screwed. Releasing, people forget, and especially gamers, everyone who watches this will have forgotten, but like at the end of the console life cycle, when you're launching PS4, yes, there's excitement around PS4 and your game coming out on PS4 might have a good launch, but that's also a point in time where the PS3 has the most ridiculous install base.
True.
So you can be a small fish in a massive pond, or you can be a small fish in a small pond, and there are benefits and
It's like you get more press, but potentially less sales. You gotta weigh that up.
And it used to be as well. Like, I think this is less of a thing now because everyone's got smartphones. But back in the day, there was also the phenomenon of like the hand-me-down console. So the idea that like whenever a big console gets sold, the old console goes to a younger sibling was always a thing. So when I was working on like lots of children's games a long time ago, that was, those would be the moments. So the PS3 launch is great. Let's make some PS2 kids games because a bunch of 10-year-olds are about to get their big brother or sister's console. Yeah.
Wow.
That is interesting.
So you do a bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, so there's those securities. There's also a lot of pressure, and also a lot of stuff coming online late, like dev kits and everything. Like you are not working with final hardware. You don't really know what's going to happen. You don't know what the platform's going to emphasize. There's class structures in terms of like communication. So like the big AAA companies may have access to cooler stuff to do with the console than you do because you've got lower priority in terms of disclosure. There's just it's a fascinating thing being there for launches of stuff. Like it's a cool process, but it's different, and it's gotten weird over time as well. But yeah, those little plucky consoles and platforms that can be.
Well,
This was
taking us away from the Vision.
I wonder if that will occur for the Vision Pro though. Like they didn't announce a lineup of games. I mean, there was footage of somebody playing with a DualSense, a PS5 controller, but I figured maybe that was streaming.
There's going to be Apple are going to be making calls. Anyone who's been doing good AR stuff on iPhone is getting a call
VR.
in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or VR, but there's not been so much VR content on iPhone. I imagine they'll go first to like the AR people who are already in their ecosystem on the App Store.
Yeah.
Who are building apps. And then I think as well, probably they'll go to some people with big VR projects, but it doesn't strike me that I don't think VR is a big part of what the offering is here. I think they know that's a very hardcore thing that will kind of come inevitably. I think they're much more likely to be interested in those kind of AR embedded experiences in the real world. I think it's very telling that they never said VR or AR in the presentation at all.
Wait, they didn't say either phrase?
Nope. No, they're immersive worlds. They're going for an audience who doesn't like acronyms. And that's
sure.
So I think
I guess VR and AR can be intimidating to.
Sounds nerdy, doesn't it?
Your
Sounds
usual
like nerdy
Apple
shit,
user. Yeah, they're trying to change your lifestyle or whatever. I mean, overall, I thought the tech.
They're selling it like a Wii, basically. They're doing the Wii thing.
I thought it was
lifestyle furniture.
I mean, that fucking worked well, but it wasn't $3,000. I thought it was super impressive, and mostly was like, oh my god, I want to try this. I also think it could
early hands-ons are amazing.
Sounds
like it's really good.
I think it could be cool for music as well. Austin, I don't know if this is a question that makes any sense, but is something like GarageBand that comes on Macs like a feasible way for somebody to actually produce music? Like, I don't know how in depth you can actually get with it. So that means that like if it is, then you're using the Vision Pro and you could like just be sliding around.
They've already announced Logic for it.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say Logic
cool.
Logic is a full-on professional level, what they call DAW, digital audio workstation, and Logic is a pretty standard install for Macs, and like it's basically just the professional version of GarageBand, but it's not it is meant to be widely accessible. Like, it's one of those when you're going to like buy a Mac and they have the software bundles of, do you want to have, Microsoft Office Suite installed? And Logic is often like, for another $100, we'll throw it in or whatever. I don't remember the
like
price.
right next to iMovie, except that I guess that's free.
But that's the same. It's in the spirit of how it is. But it is a full-on professional piece of software. I mean, I have tons of composer friends that score major things in Logic, so it's not one of those where there's any compromise to using it.
I'm going to come in with a correction immediately to save the comment section. They announced Logic for iPad, not for Vision Pro. That's me blurring two things that happened in the same press conference.
Okay.
But still, if it's on iPad,
likely
they're going to bring it across.
In any case, I assume GarageBand will, because it comes with everything. But I feel like, as somebody who's always been interested in music production but has never tried it, that doing it in that kind of workspace appeals to me for some reason more than any other workspace. Like, if I can drag things around and...
I remember doing an early test before launch of Dreams, and they had a kind of rudimentary version of a music GarageBand type creator tool.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And the way they kind of put it in 3D space as a way to visualize like the sort of the musical timeline as sort of a thing that's physically passing through space, and you place things in its path in order to function as plugins. Like, I want to add reverb, so I'm going to make a reverb cloud that the note literally goes through. And I remember thinking that was an incredible way to visualize music, especially for folks that may not think in terms of what a DAW is. Yeah. And I saw literally this morning, I didn't watch the Apple presentation, but I saw a composer, this guy Simon, who used to work for James Horner and thus assumed the mantle of he scored the newest Avatar for James Cameron in light of James Horner's death. He wrote, like, he goes, I see myself writing, I can already just predict this is going to be how I write music from now on. Like, he was immediately sold. I didn't get a chance to unpack what specific thing he was responding to or what part of his workflow, if he means mixing, if he means composing in its most raw state. But he was all a buzz about the potential of this thing from a composer's point of view. And this is a guy who scored Avatar, so we're talking about someone who has obviously the highest possible professional needs.
Well, and I feel like if we have three creatives on this call, and him, who we're going to be replacing you with, obviously, Austin, and that Mike and I both go for writing, amazing. And a composer said that literally for music production. I mean, if you've tapped into the appeal of like creative business people, it doesn't appeal to me for video editing. I don't really know why. I think mostly because I have so many keyboard shortcuts that I feel like it's so much easier to just keyboard shortcut.
The keyboard. No, you can use the keyboard and mouse. But that's the they've demoed it. Like, you can have a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse in the real world in front of you.
I thought that you could have your MacBook. I got that.
You can have a MacBook. You can have whatever you've got in front of you. It's just additional screens around.
Okay, well, that's great news. But still, I think my monitor does everything that I need. You want
to,
Maybe that's just that the scale of videos I'm editing are not, like, I'm not working with that many clips in the timeline or whatever.
I think it's very interesting. I don't know if this is... I might be drawing between lines. They also announced the new desktop Mac, the Studio, without showing a screen connected to it. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's good. There's a part of me that's like, I wonder if that's the offering, basically, is you have your little Mac tower.
What are your listeners? Austin has replaced his background image with a composer.
I assume this is the dude.
My replacement.
The guy? Yes, your replacement. Great. Can you change your name as well, please?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Look how you look in the corner.
Someone in the comments can diagnose me, but like, one of the things that really helps my productivity is grabbing my laptop and just going to a different room or sitting outside. Like, changes of scenery 100%. Really fucking help me.
Yeah, totally.
So the idea that I could be working and just like basically like change my wallpaper 3D world around me while I'm working.
Well, for video games, Mike,
feels like that could genuinely help me.
I think we wouldn't be allowed because they don't let us use Apple product for security reasons, but I could have concept art up. I could literally have a clip playing what level design has been working on while I'm writing a scene. I could have all of that on one screen at once or in my living room at once, and that sounds fucking so helpful.
I mean, I already, while I'm writing unspecified sci-fi franchise that I'm currently writing, I will
No, it's
put
not
on...
Avatar, my most recent credit.
Simon
It's not
Franklin.
Avatar, your most recent one.
Hey, Simon, what was it like
Yeah.
working on Avatar?
Amazing. You can see I maintain a very stoic expression with my iPad connected to Pro Tools and a bunch of EQ filters.
Wait, does he have his iPad connected to?
That's what's under his hand. Oh no, that's
Simon, you've
No,
got
that's a
beautiful
mouse
hair,
pad.
by the way.
no. It's maybe
That's a
I
mouse
guess.
pad. You can see
Unless
his
he's got
hands
a
in the
mouse
claw.
on an iPad,
Yeah.
which is like unhinged. We need to put you in jail for that, Simon.
No, I think
This
you're right.
this
I think
is
it's
this
I
is
think
why
it's a
Simon's
trackpad.
getting into VR. Yeah, he's like this. I keep using my iPad. It doesn't work with the mouse. I need to upgrade.
Get me that
I'm
headset
saying like
stat.
I do so much mood stuff in terms of like putting on music,
Yeah.
doing lighting changes and stuff. Like that already is part of my process is to like play with my ambience. The idea of like doing that at another level. If the resolution's good, if it's comfortable, if it's not too heavy, if it feels good to wear it for a few hours, that kind of thing. That's the other issue is it's got a 2-hour battery life, but you can plug it into the mains as well, but then you're tethered. So
If we're writing, we're
there's
going to
be some
sitting.
interesting...
A lot of people would be.
That's exactly, yeah.
I do think that one issue that I have with the Quest 2, which again I'm hoping the Quest 3 alleviates, is
He's having fun.
my head gets sore after about 45 minutes, and it's not uncommon for me to work out in it for 45 minutes straight, but it does start to hurt, and I think that's because of the way it's weighted. So I like that the Vision Pro has the battery in your pocket to take that away, but I also Austin just putting in little visual jokes for us. What a great... Hang on, can you speak like Grant Kirkhope though, Austin? That's a tough one.
Do Kirkhope
basically,
impression
it sounds
for
like
us.
this.
Brand. He's not, because he's out of Manchester or something. He's really...
This is horrible.
Manchester.
yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do Manchester.
I can get someone in from outside.
Yeah,
I'm
you wanna
sat
get
in
someone from the
Manchester
street and
now.
then
I'll
send
just
them in.
I'll just grab someone, yeah. It's fine.
What was I saying? I hope that it's not too front heavy. I'm sure that they've done that. Apple's very good about that shit.
Aluminium, so we'll see.
Because the back thing...
It's that front is glass and aluminium.
Again,
So
that's weighty. But the back pad does look very cool, though. I also wonder if that will stretch over time, because that would be a major problem. Where the the Meta, I'm calling it Oculus. I don't care. Has either a strap over the top, or mine has a strap over the back that you like tighten with this little circle. And I have just an extra battery pack sitting on there, so it's like weighted evenly. I'm a big fan. The other thing that really blew my mind that I'm not sure if this exists in this capacity is in any other hardware is they spoke about audio ray tracing. They mentioned
the spatial
it sounds like
audio.
3D
but they
audio.
didn't just call it 3D audio or spatial like laptops talk about that. They referred to it, I believe the phrase was audio ray tracing, and then they showed an environment with audio bounce. Like, what is that? What does that sound like?
They model with the AirPods. So when you get AirPods, you take photographs of the side of your head or you do 3D scans of your ears, so they can model what your ears are shaped like, so that their sound can sound. Oh boy, who's that smoldering?
Look at him! Wow!
Look at him, baby Troy.
How old is he in that photo?
12.
He looks like such a baby.
Why can't I?
It's zoomed
You have
in
to
because
crop
there's
it.
the other 4 members of the boy band are also in that picture. That's the.
What did you just say, Mike? I got distracted by Troy.
That's it. I mean,
happens
that's
to
the
be fair, you got
format.
distracted
In
by
fairness,
me.
that's the show.
Oh, sorry, Austin. I won't take credit away from you. I got distracted by Austin.
What was I saying? Yeah, the
Oh, yes. I have
it's not
AirPods, and I've never fucking done that. What are you talking about?
You can absolutely go into your settings and map your ears so you get better spatial audio, so it sounds
I had
more
no
like
idea.
how your ears hear sound. Yeah,
Is that just with the new AirPods?
I think I've got
have
I've
the
not got the
AirPods- I have
newest
the
ones.
middle
I've got like a
ones.
generation. Yeah, I think that's the ones
Pro.
I've got. Yeah,
The new ones, like, the case looks different. It's got, like,
yeah. I've
silver
got
dots on it.
Hold
and-
up the case to you. Is this the one you've got?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same as me. The new one's also.
you can absolutely.
I had no idea that was a thing.
But that's something. I was watching a YouTuber who's done hands-on with this, and he's like, in retrospect, the fact that the last few things that Apple have been announcing are small graphics processors, spatial audio, high-resolution screens. How did we not see this coming?
Yeah.
Like, this is obviously the technology they've been trialing kind of across their family.
It because it doesn't seem like something that is massively consumer. There's not that much appeal. It's not that there's not, but VR has never taken off. And again, I think a fundamental issue with that is the thing that I think they've fallen into here is underestimating how much people enjoy their spaces. I decorated this office so that I like being in here. I don't want to block it out. I really like being in here. Living rooms are a huge thing. I feel like that's a really big thing with VR is that I could play a lot of games in VR, but choose not to.
The audio experience of this podcast can
now
be interesting.
It's Troy screaming and pointing a gun in a mocap suit.
We're using audio ray tracing to capture Troy in various resolutions.
Austin, don't you have to go?
I do, yes. I'm being
so much fun.
Putting little visual jokes in the podcast. So
can you as the professional, can you answer Alanah's question about audio ray tracing?
I've never heard that term. That's why I was wondering if it was maybe just their attempt to say 3D audio, but differentiate from gaming consoles or whatnot who use that term. And obviously,
audio ray tracing is a tech term. Like, what does that mean to the?
It sounds like a buzzword to me.
I agree.
It sounds.
It's
got that ring of like. It also sounds like, in fairness, it sounds like a savvily conceived buzzword because you can immediately kind of guess what they're presumably after with that.
Well, the visual was their headphones that are built in do seem very cool. Like. Very impressed by that in general, but it was a visual of, I guess, the headset having sort of a scan of your living room, and it would, I guess, bounce off of your pillows. Like,
that's cool, right? Like because they're doing LiDAR scans. So they've got like a 3D approximation of the room you're in.
Yeah.
So they know the distances to the walls. There is like things sound different, obviously, in a small room versus a big space. Like you could absolutely see them.
Is that why they would?
Echo up. I wonder if that's what it is.
Maybe that's
like they're going.
It's about. You want to take it down?
It's about accurately recreating
your space.
The space, like if you're using it in a gym, like a high school gymnasium, versus in your living room with that's carpeted. These are going to sound wildly different from one another. And if
they're also amazing at the audio counseling, their tech is phenomenal for like when you're on calls.
Oh, so good.
Have you ever, like when you put audio cancelling on, it's incredible. So like they're already playing.
And the more that it knows about the environment, the more that it can create an accurate model. Someone was explaining to me the other day something I didn't realize, that voice over IP doesn't work by transmitting your voice in the way that you would expect over a phone, but it's effectively encoding it and then reconstructing it from scratch on the other side, so that the difference,
sending as little data as possible, basically.
Yeah, exactly, and also for the sake of latency and all that kind of thing. And I had never realized that it's not making a recording of your voice; it's making like a model of it, basically. And the fact that it can do it so accurately, but that also lets them do noise cancellation and whatnot because it can get rid of so much signal.
Shit.
And that's the machine learning stuff that everyone's ignoring. Is we are about to enter an era where the idea of data as we currently think of it, of like an image is a bunch of pixels or a sound file is a waveform, that's going away. That's not going to be how data actually is stored. It's going to be more like a vector file where you kind of have the instructions. So like this, I mean, it's even happening now when we're talking on video. A full screen video of me is not being sent to the two of you right now. It's sending the portions that are changing. It's also doing what Austin's saying, where it's predicting. It's going, well, Mike's face kind of looks like that.
I mean, what's cool about that is that our own brains do that. You know, like every time that you blink, you don't notice that you see black. It's because your brain informs what the image would be.
Or looking in the mirror, one eye than the other. Have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
That's
also the fact that we have a blind spot.
Your brain doesn't work.
Yeah, you just
our eyes have a blind spot in the exact center of our vision that our brain is.
Everyone who's watching this, if you've never done this, stand in front of the mirror tonight and look at one of your eyes, then look at the other, and you won't see your eyeballs move. And that's because your brain is constantly lying to you about.
Just gets rid of it. So we're just doing the same. I actually think like that's such a cool thing about cameras is that so much of camera science is based on the human eye. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that we also change how much light we let in. Like it's very, very, very cool. And I imagine that most of these Zoom calls are we've already spoken before about the AI assistant we have highlighting whoever's speaking. They're probably also filling in frames. I mean, like, I'd say like a good 50% of ghost videos on the internet are someone not understanding how artifacting works
compression,
on a security camera.
And that's what's
actually,
changing.
I'm going to go with 99% of ghost videos.
All of them.
I mean, no, a lot of them are like a person stood behind a door and slammed it. Okay, we got to account for all of those.
That's true.
I think your take is actually only half of them are real ghosts. The other half are artifacts.
That's not what I meant. It's like someone not understanding a camera.
People are not nearly skeptical enough.
Just a dude
no
slamming
way
a door.
more than half of those are ghosts. Yeah, I will say that to your point about the kind of it's about data existing in a different form. There's already examples of this in my world that are really cool in the form of virtual instruments. So if
MIDIs,
you
right?
like the traditional way of creating what we call VSTs, virtual instruments, is you basically record an instrument one note at a time. And then when you play on your MIDI keyboard, it's triggering the correct note at the correct, what we call velocity, basically the loudness and all that. And then really sophisticated ones will also record like all the legato transitions. So they'll have, like, for example, my friend Tina, the cellist, she has a sample library you can buy that's like branded with her name and photos and everything from a company called Cinesamples. And there's a legato mode where you play a melody and you hear the cello sliding between the notes, to be like, ba-dum. And the reason why is because she records every note going to every other note. And it's insanely, it takes days of really boring tedium. And the result is when you go to download the library, it's like, I don't know how big that particular one is, but it's many gigs worth of wave files, and all the computer is doing is just rapidly moving around, grabbing which ones it's playing back. But the future, it would seem to me, is like there's a company called Sample Modeling where they basically just do an enormous amount of algorithmic analysis, and then they recreate it from nothing. And so the footprint on your computer is next to zero because there's no audio. It's 100% data. And like in particular, whenever I need to use saxophone, I use the Sample Modeling saxophones, and they sound so good. And also because it's purely data, there's so much that you can control that you can't, that if the audio doesn't have that baked in, you can't do it. But whereas with these, if I want the note to like do weird effects, or I want it to get louder and then softer and louder again, and like you could script a billion. It's very tedious, but for purposes of virtual instruments, it is. I looked at that. I remember a guy played for me in the hallway at GDC like 10 years ago, a trumpet done with sample modeling, and it was basically indistinguishable from a real trumpet. And he was like, there's no real audio here.
How far off are we from me playing you a song that is entirely VST, I think you call it, versus a real orchestra, and you not being able to tell the difference?
Oh, I mean, there's tons of stuff out there that's for 20 years been like that already. And
you already can't tell the difference?
Well, no, you can tell the difference, but I can tell the difference. The average consumer,
what I mean.
like I was like Angela and I have been replaying my 5 millionth time, her first time, going through Mass Effect, and like this is 15, 16 years old. There's quite a few orchestral cues in there that to me are very much showing their age because they're totally fake. Aw, Kirkhope makes another appearance.
Banjo's second appearance of the show.
But like most movie trailers, like the overwhelming majority of movie trailers are 100% fake. Everything about it is
most TV shows, like, you know what I mean? Like the vast majority of stuff you're hearing is Game of Thrones. Was Game of Thrones mostly digital?
In the earliest days of the first show, I'm pretty sure now it's all or huge
Now
swaths
it
of it are
probably
being
is.
done.
Yeah, now
but,
the money's there,
but definitely the earliest days of it, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was always it took a lot of, you know, someone like Bear had to sort of like strong arm a lot of the TV that he's done to record live, and most of his is done live, even as early as Battlestar Galactica. Which was
I was going to say,
highly
it's a famous
unusual at the time.
vocalist he worked with on Battlestar, right? It's like this one specific performer that does all of the.
Well, his
the
wife
vocals in
sings on
Battlestar.
quite a lot of his stuff, including,
right?
I'm pretty sure, the opening of Battlestar. Yeah,
That's probably
Raya.
what I'm thinking of.
There's stuff that we certainly like where AI is concerned. I think the plagiarism problem only persists. I know that Google is currently testing. You know, you Google a question and it gives you AI generated answers. And what that AI is doing right now is bad. It just pulls from the most popular headlines less efficiently. Somebody on Twitter
Someone
used an
described
example. Go ahead.
Well, it's just someone I was talking to described it as basically super sophisticated predictive text, like in your phone. Like it's basically that same
that's a
fundamental
really good
text.
explanation.
Yeah, it's the super
Word by
advanced
word.
version of that. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody on Twitter posted they searched for where to find, I think, like Hinox. Somebody to do with Hinox is in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And it basically just said, here's what a Hinox toenail is. Because it didn't register the information as they had written it, and then it was more useful to go to the articles below because the humans know what you're going to be searching for because they've played the game. Or otherwise it gave vague locations, like areas of the map that are not really useful because you need such
I was going to say,
detail.
game FAQs are one of the most optimized, like,
They have to be.
search engine.
And that's a human being
SEO
like,
stuff,
I
'cause
know
it's-
that people are going to want this. Unless the AI has played the game, it cannot generate that information. So it is really still just plagiarism. And I think that's obviously still an issue with a lot of art too. Though I have seen some really cool uses with art. Again, plagiarism, obviously bad. But I follow a designer, I don't know if we spoke about this before, on Instagram, who she's a fashion designer, generates images via AI and then creates dresses based on what they come up with. And it's fucking cool because it seems, even though it's just putting together a bunch of human-made stuff without any credit, it's something that it seems like it would be difficult for a human mind to just come up with.
But fashion designers have been using like collage as like
That's
a
true.
brainstorming ideation process
For a long time.
for centuries. Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean,
that-
concept artists and games still do that.
Yeah, there's value in it as a tool. As I think the two issues I have with it are, as you say, the plagiarism aspect, which I'm not sure how you untangle that, frankly, at this stage. The cat's out of the bag. That's bad. The other thing that bothers me is just how it's oversold. Just it's being the general public has such a weird perception of what this stuff can do in terms of how it, you know, the idea that it can originate things, that it can generate. You could write a whole novel with an AI. No, you couldn't. Not that anyone would read. Like it's
The
there's-
writer of Black
as
Mirror
a tool.
wrote a ChatGPT, had it write a Black Mirror episode. He said it was dog shit. And I also watched a
Yeah, it
stand-up
will be.
comedian do a stand-up set that was written by ChatGPT, and he
South
bombed.
South Park recently used it as well. They had an episode. I'm pretty sure they aired it, or they're gonna. I saw the headline, but I'm behind on South Park right now. But they definitely were like, we're gonna make an episode about AI, written by AI, which is an incredibly South Park thing of them to do.
Especially if it's bad.
And yeah, well, that's the thing. Like they would. The worse it is, the better for them.
Yeah.
But by definition, an AI can't generate something new. It's entirely always regurgitation.
Yes.
And there's
But
an
it-
argument
but
that
here's the-
humanity, in the way we read it, we can, through that regurgitation, we can add new meaning to it, we can see new meaning. And guided by an artist, I think it's incredibly useful. I've looked at it, I've played with these things a little bit, and as a brainstorming tool, or as a clever Google, like if you have a question that would be hard to Google because it requires so many context clues, there is value in something like
there's
this
totally
as a backup,
value
as a
in it.
support
What do
research tool. But it's not. It's being. I think, frankly, too much pressure is being put on it to be like the death of artists by the people who are trying to build.
Well,
up
that's
hype.
because all the
And it's
crypto bros
nonsense.
jumped on it. If you see
you
how
have
they
the
left
weird stuff
crypto
about
and then
the-
jumped straight into AI, it's the same fucking guy.
But there was that story that came out, which everyone was obsessed with for 24 hours, of the in simulations an AI had killed an operator in a military simulation. Utter nonsense. Never happened. It was a general, basically posited that as a theory he had of how an AI would work in the and that turned through.
Oh, is that
the game of telephone? It turned into and that's the thing, is there's a credulity. I saw someone saying, I'm stealing this from someone else. The greatest thing with AI from like a marketing point of view is they're able to lean into hundreds of years of science fiction.
Yeah.
And the average consumer's view of AI is data, how, Terminator, whatever. And if you play into that image that people have in their heads, you don't really even need to bother inventing anything. You can just kind of rely on that association. And it's annoying because it's similar to the NFT thing. It's like, there's cool tech here potentially. There's cool uses for this tech, but it's being jumped on by just the worst people and exploited in just a bunch of gross ways.
Yeah,
and
because
then
they want to make money.
Which is its own thing.
Here's a question.
It's almost like there's some kind of issue with the way we have our society set up for the acquisition.
Capitalism?
I don't want to get into it today. Like, let's not.
I looked directly at Austin's reaction.
You can always tell Mike is getting ready with one of his takes when he leans into the microphone and goes, "It's almost as if."
Money bags.
I want to see
the hypocrite of the show.
I want to see a super cut of
He's
every
the one who's going to buy the
Mike
fucking
is
Vision
done.
Pro. $1,500 tech. You piece of shit.
Here's a question
I'm
for
going to
you.
redistribute the Vision Pro to the people. Seize the means of virtual reproduction.
Virtual reproduction.
I know. I went in the direction there. I apologize.
You went in the demolition man. I didn't even touch you. When you said by its definition it cannot create something new, here is my. I know I'm not the first by any stretch to echo this, which is in a way meta to the very question I'm asking, but the
Oculus.
Yeah, sorry.
Oculus.
This is very Oculus. This is the given a sufficiently large data set. At what point does something then become new for all intents and purposes? Because if the data set is, for example, the whole of human knowledge, where does the boundary between that and what any other normal human artist is doing of just drawing on the whole of human knowledge and their own experiences? It seems like that's less of a magic pulling out of a black box of indeterminacy, the artist's muse, than it is just we internalize the data set in slightly unpredictable ways. That's sort of essentially what seems to define what being an artist or a creator is. Given a sufficiently large data set, where does the line become where that's not really fundamentally all the AI is doing as well? I don't know the answer to that. To me, it seems like
I'm going to arrogantly assume I do and give an answer, which is
great.
Intuition and understanding of the data set. You're absolutely right. Like, again, like something else I read recently that is 100% true, which is being an innovator in a field. 95% of the time, innovators are just people who apply a mode of thinking from over here to over here. That's most innovation is just stealing an idea from one area of society or creativity and applying it to a different one.
Yep.
But that requires the person doing it to have intentionality, to go, oh, there's an interesting juxtaposition here. My interest, so to use me as an example, I'm interested in dinosaurs and paleontology, and I'm interested in
Tron.
What else am I interested in? Tron. So let's put dinosaurs in Tron. That's really interesting, right? And I can originate that idea. And whether or not you think Tron dinosaurs, which we're not doing, apologies, Disney, whether or not you think that's a good idea, it's an idea. Whereas when you're talking about, as you said, like predictive text, essentially, which is all these systems are, is there a chance it randomly mushes together dinosaurs and Tron? Sure. But then what? Because it doesn't know what dinosaurs are and it doesn't know what Tron are. So it can't say anything meaningful about that juxtaposition. It can't make an interesting link. It can just work out the next word that should be in the sentence in a very boring, progressive way. It is essentially a very, very impressive set of monkeys in front of typewriters.
But that's where the monkey and typewriter thing is actually the perfect analogy, where if it's able to generate 100 million variations on Tron plus dinosaurs, it doesn't strike me as implausible that one of them...
But the point of that metaphor has never been, if you got enough monkeys in a room, they'd be as clever as Shakespeare. That's never been the point of that metaphor, right? The metaphor is that random happenstance can come up.
Yeah.
They'll accidentally happen upon it, but it was never.
But I always think
the
of it.
question you're posing is can the machine ever kind of be as creative as human? And to my mind, no. The monkeys,
but I don't know that it would need to be.
Room, can never write Shakespeare.
Because if you think of it through the lens of like Reddit upvoting, if it made millions of things and the humanity was kind of cutting across it, and one of them happened to stand out and by dumb luck be interesting and got organically sort of upvoted through a mass consumer, not only would it have accidentally created something people found interesting, but it then would know what people found interesting, which would seemingly feed the data further. So that's where I go.
My argument would be the creative in that situation is the community who upvoted the thing, who
for
found
sure.
the meaning in it.
Yeah, absolutely. But
it's still humans.
But I'm not. I'm going purely from the consumer side. Does this have the potential to replace the artist? Because the consumer can eventually teach it what it wants, even if it's in an underlying philosophical sense. I don't know, but it doesn't strike me as implausible.
That's the issue. The thing.
I totally think it can eventually replace the artist. And here's the thing about like even writing a screenplay. Like, you can write a screenplay that is almost by design. You can turn yourself into the AI robot and be like, let me mash this theme and then literally follow the beats of the hero's journey and give me like 15 of the touchstones and then just fucking port that into a script that looks like this script. Oh, let me pull this from this script. You can do that yourself and it would probably sell. I think that there are a lot of screenplays even now that are written with like mass market consumption in mind and less art in mind. So I 100% think an AI can write a screenplay.
But what you just described, Alanah, is not how... I want to be really clear. And this stuff, to be clear, it's evolving technology, so everything I say might be wrong in 2 weeks. But fundamentally, the brilliance of the marketing these people have done around AI has been to convince the two of you to think about it in the terms you are, which is a stupid human.
It isn't there yet. Oh, yeah, sure.
That the AI, if you go to ChatGPT and say, write me a movie screenplay, it's not going to sit down, Alanah, as you do and go, okay, what are my themes? How do I plug this in? What's an idea here? What are my beats I have to hit? It's just going to write the first word of a script. And the first word of a script, 99% of the time, is int.
Dot.
And then it's going to go to the next word, and it's going to go, a lot of them are setting off. It's just trying to work out the next word in the sentence. When you say about internalizing the philosophy, Austin, of what the community's wanting, it can't. It's not that clever.
I don't think it can today, and maybe not for decades to come. Today. But I'm simply hypothesizing on what's possible within the spectrum of as just unfathomable amounts of data is harvested and ingested, the patterns emerge where we're predictable organisms on a sufficiently zoomed out level. Populations move with predictability far more than individuals do. And if this thing is operating at that level, then it doesn't strike me as implausible that eventually it could create things that really are good enough for what most people are looking for. You know what I mean? And that's not.
I definitely think it can. I just don't. Yeah, I think
it can make content for sure. It can make content. It can't make art. That's the. And we can have hundreds of years of arguments about what the difference between those two things is.
Yeah,
I'd be an idiot to say, could someone sneak a piece of AI generated paragraph past me and I wouldn't notice? Of course they could. Of course they could. And to me, that's the value.
Probably
of it right
not
now,
yet.
I think it's pretty clear from this conversation that I've been AI generated this whole time.
I've been playing this game recently. It's just a browser-based thing. I don't know if you can call it a game. It's a game where you have to guess if you're talking to a human or an AI. And you chat for about 3 minutes, and I've gotten it right every single time. Every single time I go, that's an AI, clearly, because you can tell motive.
Sounds like the future of chat roulette. You're like, is this an AI? And then it just shows you it's junk, and you're like, one was not.
Yeah, it was that, but with slightly less dicks.
Yeah.
There was also a guy on YouTube. I was watching a video who basically made an AI Instagram account to see if he could fool the internet with it or whatever. Every part of it was AI, including everything that she said. And the only person that she had a lengthy conversation with figured out that she was AI. It was like, an AI wrote this. This is definitely an AI. Again, that's just where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of hard to say, could you give me a paragraph written by an AI and fool me? Because The problem with that is that the AI could, in theory, just copy-paste a paragraph from a human. And so...
Which is largely what it's doing.
So how do you say which is AI and which is the human? Just because it's delivered to you by an AI, a human still wrote it, so that you're not being fooled by the AI.
Yeah, and I do, to be clear, like, I do have the same optimism you two have, that one day we could get there. Unfortunately, I think the methodology that's being used for the current models is an amazing parlor trick. It's the mechanical turk for our era.
Yeah,
it's a
clearly.
very good trick. It's the old chess trick where you sit, Darren Brown did it, where you sit down with 30, you can sit down with 12 chess masters and win half the games, because all you do is play half the chess masters off against the other half. It's these kind of simple tricks that I think are distracting, unfortunately. I think they're very cool things.
Freaking love Darren Brown.
Then, yeah, it's a clever trick, but that's all it is right now. And that's what I find frustrating, is because there's actually really interesting work being done in AI that's not as immediately impressive, but very cool,
and things that are
more
really
likely
helpful
to lead us towards good stuff. Yeah, the amount of machine learning stuff that's being done behind the scenes, a bunch of it in the kind of the Vision Pro, just to bring it full circle. The way in which that is able to interpret you pinching your fingers, because it's seen billions of people pinching their fingers and has worked out what that means. That stuff is amazing.
Oculus can tell when I'm doing a thumbs up or when I'm pointing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interpretive AI in that way is amazing, but it's less impressive than an article that says, in the future, no one will
wrote a
ever have to
screenplay. But I still just, you used the word optimistic. There are ways in which we already use AI all the time that are very, very helpful. Mm-hmm. I don't know that this application is something I feel optimistic about, because I just can't get over the fact that we expected some future where robots take the shitty jobs and the humans get to do the things they like. And why is it happening the other way around? Humans like art and writing, and the AI's like, what if we did the stuff you do?
If I can go a little lefty for a bit, we kind of did do that. Like, in terms of manufacturing and industrial work, for the last 30 years, machines have taken most of those jobs, or taken a lot of those jobs in terms of the roboticization.
Look at car factories.
And,
that's true.
Like, we're feeling it now because we all have white-collar jobs, but the folks who've been working in factories all this time have definitely experienced.
That's true. It's the dangerous ones, like the truck drivers. Like, how do we automate that a bit better so they don't?
Well, the self-driving car is 10 years away, Alana.
That's
it's
true.
10 years away, and it's been 10 years away for 40 years now. And we can't wait.
So close.
I gotta run.
Close. Any second now. It's definitely 10 years around the corner.
We can end it here. Look at us go.
I don't mean to catalyze that, but I am sort of you bastards had an interesting conversation I couldn't break free from, and
imagine that.
I know.
That means every other time you're able to leave because we bore you.
Yeah, I was really looking for fluff, and you've really
not enough fluff this episode.
We could have just talked about Gollum for an hour and you'd have headed off.
I'm also very tempted to title the episode Tron plus Dinosaurs, but I'm not going to do that. As much as I would love
20
to.
emails.
as a preemptive apologies to our editor, I also realized that I plugged in my microphone and I had it running and going when I joined, but it was like over there and still had a bag covering it, and I was talking for the first 5 minutes. So the Zoom audio or whatever is going to be far more reliable, because it's going to basically sound like a person inside one of these.
Editor, if you could slowly, at this point in the video, if you could have just been zooming in on Alana's face for the last 10 seconds of Austin talking there while that was happening.
Disappointed. Jack.
I want to give notes. I know you've already got enough to deal with the audio problem Austin's talking about, but if you could just do that slow zoom on Alana's face, that would be amazing. Thank you.
We really appreciate you, Jack. Sorry.
Cheers, Jack.
I do have the audio recording though, so we're okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Alanah, Pearce. I'm a video game writer. That's my Bill. He's a video game director, and that's also Wintry. He's a video game composer. Sorry, it was Simon.
Simon Franklin.
Simon Franklin, apologies, who is a Avatar composer. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.